Welcome to the PakMag Parents Podcast. I'm Bree James, and on today's episode, I'm going to chat to Allison Davies, all the way from Tasmania. Now, she's a registered music therapist of 16 years. Now, she works within the neurodiversity framework that favours deep acceptance and regulation over assimilation and intervention. And she shares her lived experience of autism openly within her workshops and seminars, conferences, as part of her emotive storytelling, mixed with a science approach to education. So today, Allison joins us on the show to chat about the power of sound and voice and how we can harness this energy to take care of our brains and well-being. So let's get her on Zoom to have a chat. So tell me, Allison, what effect do thoughts, words, and music have on our bodies?
Well, this is a really complex question. This question could go on for an hour, this answer. There are so many different and complex ways that our thoughts, our words, and our sound and our voice impact our body. Let's just talk for one moment about sound or using our voice. When our brain hears our voice, our brain knows our own voice really well. You know, when you cold call someone and you don't know what they're going to sound like, and it's always a bit nervous, and you hear their voice and you're like, oh, that's strange, or that's not what I expected them to sound like, or there's often a bit of tension. It's like your brain doesn't know that voice, but your brain knows your voice really, really well. So when your brain hears, or when your ears hear your voice and send that message to your brain, and your brain's like, oh, that's our voice, we're safe, I know this voice, I'm home, I'm okay. So actually using our voice out loud sends a signal to our brain that we are safe and that our brain is in control, because this is us. This is our voice. We know this voice really well. So for one, using our voice out loud can be a really incredible way of supporting ourselves to feel safe, and coming out of survival mode, which is what underpins anxiety and a lot of fear and a lot of the things that we find we really struggle with in our modern Western culture. And then when we sing, we are also doing breathing. We are when you sing out, you literally cannot breathe in as you're singing out. So when you sing a phrase or a sentence, it's a complete out breath, and then you breathe in and you sing out, and you breathe in and you sing out. So it doesn't matter what you're singing. It can be a nursery rhyme, a Christmas carol, a pop song. You could just be la, 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 it doesn't matter what the words are or what you're singing. But by default, using our voice in that way is controlled breathing. And so singing out loud with our children especially is such a powerful way of them experiencing controlled breathing, which, in terms of what impact this has on our cells and our body, when the longer or the more controlled our breath is, the more potential there is for our blood to become oxygenated. So it impacts all our organs, our skin, our teeth, our hair, our mood, our brain. And, rather than have to teach kids how to breathe, or this is how we do it, we just sing. It just does it automatically. The research shows us that when we experience music, and so experiencing music means either making it, listening to it, or even thinking about it. So even when we've just got a song in our head and we're thinking about it, when we do any of those things, more of our brain becomes active all at the same time than it does when we experience any other thing.
Wow.
Anything that's been researched, anything that science can prove to us. So making music, listening to music, or even thinking about music, it leads to this whole brain response where there's just so many different parts of the brain active. And I tend to feel, I have this sort of analogy or picture that I think of in my head around music. And I tend to think of music as sort of like an umbrella term for a whole bunch of musical elements that all come together to make up what we think of as music. So that includes melody, rhythm, harmony, tempo, volume, frequency, vibration, even silence. We literally cannot have rhythm without silence. Like we can't without silence, music really doesn't really exist in the way we think of music existing. So, there are musical elements like silence, for example, that we never talk about, we never teach people about, and they kind of get forgotten about, but they're super important. And so our brain responds to all of these music-based elements in different ways. And that's why when we experience music, we have such a full brain response. So many different things are happening. And that allows our brain to integrate, process, make sense of, do its job, organize the sensory information, and do the executive functioning, and tell our body how to move, and all of the things that help us feel safe and in control and make us feel good.
It's so interesting because you say music, can change, like is one of the most important things that we can be listening to. But what about all of this, music that's actually quite negative? What are your thoughts around that? Because I've done a little bit of like reading on it. It kind of freaked me out a little bit about the subliminal messages, and even the key that some music's in can actually impact our moods a lot.
Yeah, I'm not an expert in terms of that topic per se. However, without going into there's definitely areas where we need to really instinctively tap into music that we feel is going to therapeutically benefit us, because there absolutely is music that can just take us down lower, especially if we are already in a place where we're feeling low or disempowered or unwell, and music can keep us in that place or can take us to places that aren't going to benefit us. So, whenever I'm working with people about, in saying that, I think it's really important to honor our individual musical identities. So for people who do love like heavy, dark kind of metal rock that, might have themes in it, and, even like hip hop with gangs and guns, and there are themes in lyrics as well, that can be inappropriate and concerning for some people. I just think it's really important to honor our own unique musical profile or musical identity, but within that, be able to really instinctively know what to stay away from or what to not listen to for 3 hours on repeat, and understand how music's going to make us feel. And that's probably a really good compass for then knowing what to choose and what to listen to.
Yeah, because it is so important what we feed into our brains and our minds. So how can we harness then the power of sound to take care of our brains and our well-being?
Well, there's a bit of a misconception in the world that specific genres. So, for example, the idea of relaxation music, it kind of annoys me because there's this idea in the world that this one style of music is relaxation music. So it might be Zen, whale music, and, chimes. And I love that kind of music myself. I don't have anything against it, but I don't love the idea of it being called relaxation music, because for some people who are in a space where they're already regulated, or they don't experience trauma, and they can let themselves go in that way with that music as a foundational sort of accompaniment for the body just to release and to relax. For that kind of demographic, the idea of that style of music as a tool for relaxation makes sense. But for a lot of people, a lot of people are hyperstimulated, hyperactive, also like depending on someone's neurotype. So if someone is neurodivergent or an ADHD, or sort of like someone who needs faster, needs more intense, because that matches who they are and where they're at, then sometimes that idea of the Zen relaxation music is just going to not work for them, but also be really annoying because it doesn't validate what they need to chill out and zone out and to get in the relaxation zone. They might need something fast, and it might need to be pumpy and beaty. And so when we look at what music can allow us to have that hypnotic feeling where we just kind of zone out, the thing that we're looking for with relaxation music, it really is about tapping into the playlists or the songs or the artists that we know will make us feel a particular way on any particular day. Because like what's relaxation and healing one day might not work for us the next week. So I try to have a really fluid approach with music, and I have different playlists that I might go to, and I'm like, oh, that's not doing it for me today. And then I'll listen to something else and I'm like, yeah, that's actually really supporting me to feel regulated in this moment. And so, but it's always like it's not like a one playlist fits all, and it's not like the one artist or the one style of music will work for me each time. It kind of changes based on who you are.
Yeah, and the mood that you're in at the time.
Answer.
Yeah. So music or sound therapy may be foreign to many people listening right now. I only discovered sound therapy in Bali a few years ago. But from your experience, how life-changing has it been for those that you've worked with? And can you explain a little bit more about how it helps people of all ages self-regulate?
Yeah, so so for 16 years, I was a registered music therapist in Australia. And so music therapy is the use of music to attain and maintain health and well-being. So it's an allied health profession. It's all around the world. And it's quite common, and a lot of people access music therapy. So music therapists it's not about the music. So there's this idea that music therapists are like musicians and we just sit around singing songs with people. But, music is our tool, and we have a level of experience and expertise in our music, like in singing and playing guitar and all the way that we are sort of using our music. However, what music therapy is about is therapy. So it's all about well-being, and music. The relationship between music and the brain is just off the Richter scale. Like it's so high and so strong that when we use music as a tool for therapeutic impact, we experience psychological changes, emotional, mental, physical, behavioral, communicative, social. Like, there's some things in life, for example, if you go to a physiotherapist, it's going to be a physical outcome. And there are certain tools and things we use for just this one outcome. Music, you can use it for physical outcomes, but you can also use it to impact sleep quality. Like there's so many different ways that music will impact us. It's such a holistic and non-invasive way of working with someone. So I've worked with, across my years as a music therapist, I worked with babies and young children. I did a lot of work. I worked in juvenile detention for a few years with teenagers. I've done a lot of work in mental health and aged care and dementia care and palliative care. So playing music for people and singing with people and for people in their last days and months of their life. So the way I work as a music therapist with all of those people in all those different ways is completely different every time. But in almost all cases, across the board, people who allow music in to be used as a tool for well-being or just like enjoyment or a meaningful experience, it was just a whole career full of success, because the outcome is never the outcome is never the goal. It's just the experience of being with someone and having music together that always allowed people to feel something meaningful and to have an experience that felt good. So music therapy is a very, very powerful allied health avenue.
Because I've read it's like a massage for your cells.
Totally. Like music is, sound is vibration. So if we think back to like our grade 8 science textbook, and we see the little wave that goes up and down, up and down, up and down, and that's the sound wave. That is what we are creating anytime we speak, anytime we sing, we make sound. Anytime we make sound, whether it's instruments or with our own body, we are creating these little sound waves. And we're all cells. We're all just vibrating atoms. And, we are 2/3 liquid, really, in terms of our body. So when you look at what happens with sound waves and vibrations and how that impacts water, and we can do that experiment ourselves. I do that often. I've got singing bowls. I fill my singing bowl up 2/3 with water and then just play the singing bowl, and the water just starts to spiral and spit, and it goes everywhere. And so that's a really simple experiment we can do to have an actual visual of what's going on inside our bodies when we experience sound. It's very profound.
Yeah, it's incredible. The sound healings that I've had of, it just changes everything in your whole state. You can be totally wiped out and zonked and you kind of walk out, but the next you have really amazing dreams that night, and the next day you just feel amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible. And now that I used to do a lot of what I call musical massages many years ago, sort of 15 years ago. And now I've recently left the music therapy industry. So I'm no longer working as a registered music therapist, but I'm delving back into my sound therapy work and my singing bowls and chanting and using it in less of a sort of medical model, but more of a very holistic and like what you're saying about just feeling like completely hypnotized and zen, and that feeling that you have the next day, it's just so light. It's just so reinvigorated. And it's very, very cool.
Yeah, it's very profound. Because as an autistic person, how much has music therapy helped you?
Well, music has been like one of the hugest, I think music has been the way I have gotten through life, to be honest. So as a child, I didn't realize I was autistic until I was in my 30s. But as a child, I used to count a lot in threes inside my head. And I used to experience a lot of confusion and a lot of, like it was hard, making eye contact's hard, and doing things are hard, and wearing clothes is hard, and listening is hard, and all sitting still is hard, and all of those things are hard. And so constantly in my body, I used to feel this vibration in my body, and sometimes I used to see it. It was like red, and it felt like anger, and it was just this angry vibration inside my body. No one externally would have seen that I was struggling or was anxious or knew that I was autistic, but this was all happening internally. And I didn't have words to discuss that with people. Like, I just assumed this is what it's like for all people. So what I found as a child is that music helped stop those things. And I used to think, as a very young child, I used to think that music was actually keeping me alive. And it was very, sometimes I'd think about that and be like, wow, like it felt like oxygen. Like, is this the same for everyone? Like, is music actually keeping us alive? Because when I would hear music, I wouldn't be counting in threes. So in my head, it was just constantly like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Or, this constant, like, very highly stimulated, dysregulated stuff going on, like where I couldn't stop and I couldn't just relax. But having music gave context to that. And so if I'm listening to music, which is in three, rhythms in threes or fours, I wasn't counting. And if I was listening to pop music and it had a beat and a rhythm, I found that I wasn't needing to stim, like to move my hands. I used to clench my hands together anyway so that I wouldn't shake them. But when I listened to music, I never felt like I needed to do that stuff. So I felt very much like music was keeping me alive. And that was a very childlike thought. I never gave it any actual thought. But then, those years later, I became a music therapist and I learned about what that means. And I was like, oh, you know what? It actually, it might not necessarily be been keeping me alive, but it absolutely was providing the sensory input that my body and brain needed to feel safe and regulated, and to be able then to learn and engage in the classroom and achieve all the things I did in a very mainstream environment, which is typically very difficult for autistic people. So yeah, it had a huge impact.
And made you come alive, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it was really difficult once I was pregnant. With my first pregnancy, I was just so sick. I was just constantly sick. I couldn't sing and I couldn't play the saxophone, which was my other sort of main form of music, because like I could literally not open my mouth. I was always sick. So I went for like 9 months there without my music, which was really a shock to the system, because I'd always been just engaged in music experiences every day. And then when my daughter was born, who's also autistic, she really screamed a lot. and it was hard, and she never slept. And so there was no real space or capacity for me there either to just get into music, like get my saxophone out or play or sing, because it was a constant, relationship with her where we were just trying to work out how to make this easy for us both. And so there was a long time there where there was no music, and I went from being really regulated and I felt quite in control of myself and who I was. And then I went to literally not being able to, like, sometimes I was nonverbal. I was counting again. I couldn't complete tasks if there was more than one step. And that got put down immediately to postnatal depression, even though I definitely didn't feel depressed. I just was doing all these things that we now know are very characteristic of autism and ADHD. So not having the music, so going from having music as a tool that supported me to thrive, and then going to not having any of that, plus having all these extra sensory demands of a screaming baby and no sleep and all of that, it really, things changed for me really quick. I went downhill, so to speak, really quickly.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because I've been a musician for most of my life. We were talking about that before the podcast. And when my husband and I aren't doing gigs and things like that, we start to have little bickery fights. And, it's such a big part of our life and our self-regulation to use our voices and to sing. And you just don't realize until that music's gone. But it can be really simple just to put the music on in the house and have a sing around the house, or, dance around, and it can just change your state or your children's state so rapidly.
Absolutely. Yeah. Music can be so simple, and it doesn't have to be. And this is something else I'm actually researching this right now. I think it's really important for people to understand that everyone is musical. To be human is to be musical, because of the relationship between music in our brain. I think of our brain as a musical organ. So the textbooks and the science out there probably won't say it like that, but to me, I really do feel like the brain is a musical organ. And so we're all musical beings, and a lot of people have a very difficult relationship with their sense of musicality. They either feel like they can't sing in tune, or they're not good enough, or the ones we call musical are typically the ones whose parents could afford piano lessons for them as a kid, or who are physically able to play a guitar, or have the emotional confidence to sing with a microphone in front of the school assembly. There's all of these factors that come in when we're considering the type of people we call musical, and they're not really a reflection on musicality as such. What even is singing out of tune, unless you're singing someone else's song? Like, who says that there is a in tune and out of tune? The modern Western scale, which is very young, it's a colonial thing. So for the whole of human history, people have been singing out of tune. We're very, right now, we're people who are very caught up in a sense of like, I'm not good enough with music, or I can't do it, I can't sing, things like that. And a lot of people carry a lot of shame. And I want to help remind people that, you don't have to play the saxophone or sing or be able to read music to be able to experience music, and that it really is just a matter of shedding the layers of shame, understanding how we as humans are musical, and then just step by step creating relationship with our voice and feeling confident to use it out loud, or feeling confident to make up a song, no matter how the rhythm is, or how the melody goes, or whether it's in tune, or, we don't have to sound like Lady Gaga. And I do believe that we are all every bit as musical as Lady Gaga. We are musical, like it's inherent in us. So I just think the more we are able to let go of these restrictions that tell us that we can't do music because we're not musical enough, I think that will really impact our culture or our society's sense of self and ability to express ourselves creatively. And I think that will impact our anxiety levels. And I think it will have a really big, my hope is that if people start expressing themselves musically without feeling like they can't do it and that they shouldn't be doing it, then it will really impact our anxiety levels. And I think it's going to be hopefully that's a really important thing.
There is a lot more data coming out about sound therapy and how incredible it is for our mind, body, soul, everything. Anyone listening right now that has an interest in harnessing the power of sound, have you got any ideas of things they can try or regular things they can do or practice resources that they could use? Because like you said, we are all musical. It's just us getting the confidence, I guess, and realizing that even humming is musical and using sound, and humming's been proven to be really amazing for your body.
Humming is really incredible for your body. And 2 generations ago, like our grandparents' generation, they used to hum and whistle all the time. And that doesn't happen anymore. And people used to dance. And now if someone dances in public, like someone takes a video of them and puts it on YouTube and everyone laughs like they're a strange weirdo. It's so interesting how we've become so conservative in how we will express ourselves. One of the things I like to do is called what I call melodic mantras. And I think this is simple. And I think this is a really empowering strategy and something that anyone can do. So if you think of any sort of affirmational mantra, it's just, a very short, concise phrase or sentence or even a word that is something that you need to hear so that you can really embody the truth of it. And so with a melodic mantra, we just have whatever that phrase might be. Let's just say, it might be, I am strong. And then instead of reading it or writing it down and looking at it, we're singing it. And the melody can be anything, but what we know about melody is that the brain feels more control and safer when the melody is simple. So instead of making a big fancy melody, we just keep it simple, like nursery rhyme style. So it might just be, I am strong, I am strong, I am strong. And we just sing it over and over. So repetition is incredible for allowing our brain to sense a sense of predictability, and that helps us feel safe and in control. The melody, it activates our limbic system. So melody and the limbic system are really closely entwined, and the limbic system is all in charge of emotions. So melody makes us feel things. So just by adding the melody to our mantra or our affirmation there, what's happening is the body is now by default, just because we've got a little bit of melody in there, it is now moving emotion through it, which is important because usually we as adults pent emotion up inside us. Children are really good at just constantly letting it move through, and that's why they're always crying and yelling and saying no. We just hold it all in. So even just adding a little bit of melody to your affirmation or your mantra is moving emotion through you. And our body entrains with the rhythm. So if we're singing, I am strong, I am strong, it's pretty slow, and our heart rate, our respiratory rate, our motor cortex, the part of our brain in charge of telling our body how to move, will tell our body to slow down, and we will find ourselves in training to this slower, more regulated rhythm. There's no right or wrong with melodic mantras. You can come up with any affirmation or mantra or sentence or phrase, and you can use any melody, and the key is just to sing it out loud so that your own ears can hear your own voice, and just to do it over and over, because the repetition is really important, and you will have so many therapeutic benefits from just doing something that simple.
I love it. Any other things to try? I love the melodic mantras. That sounds amazing. Adding that to my my morning ritual.
Yes, yeah, it's a really good one. I used to try and do it daily. Now I try and just do it whenever I think of it.
Yep.
I find that it comes.
People sorry, just to interrupt there, because you did say even if you think of music, so even if you don't want to sing it out loud, you can sing it in your head as well, and it would still have the same impact, really.
Yeah, and I think that's also the benefit of earworms. So a song that's just stuck in your head that's just going over and over. Last year at the beginning of the pandemic, I sang this song called Every Little Cell on Facebook, and it was within hours there was millions of people. I hadn't even probably gotten dressed that day. I really expected maybe 20 people to see it, and millions of people saw it. And I've had hundreds or maybe thousands of emails from people saying that that song got stuck in their head. And so I've been able to tell people that, you know, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Our ego doesn't like it. And we're like, oh, I've got to get this song out of my head. It's so annoying. But in terms of physiologically, what's happening is there's this repetition, and our brain is using that as a form of sensory input, the repetition and the predictability of it. And, you know, kids' songs, so Every Little Cell was sort of a bit of a kid's song. But any simple songs like nursery rhyme style songs, lullaby style songs, anything that's simple and short and repetitive, even just thinking about them in our head is incredible. And another thing is, if you want to self-soothe, when you do sing out loud, singing to yourself in lullaby voice can be really powerful. You know, lullaby voice is our pitch is a little bit heightened, it's a bit more whispery, we slow down. That dialect is called parentese. It used to be called motherese. It's now called parentese, and there's a lot of research about parentese. We instinctively speak like that to new babies and cute kittens and puppies. You know, we'll like hold them and we're like, hello, darling, you know, that voice, that's lullaby voice. And we do that because our brain likes it. It feels safe. It makes us feel safe. It soothes us. That's why we speak to babies like that, because we know it's going to help our baby feel loved, safe, and connected, which is how a baby's brain grows when it experiences those things. So singing to ourselves in lullaby voice is really, really empowering as well. And I think doing that out loud so that we can hear that soft, soothing tone of ours is a really special thing to do as well.
So that high-pitched, silly voice that we do is, you know, scientifically proven to help. That's why we do it. I've always wondered why all of a sudden you see a baby, oh, hello, baby.
It is so much, you know, even babies do it to babies. Like toddlers and little ones will see another baby and they'll go, hello, you know, and it happens in every culture around the world. It's not a Western thing. It's just a human thing. We all do it.
Oh, wow. Any other tips or advice for people listening right now in regards to sound?
I just want to acknowledge that it can be hard to use your voice when you are someone who's always had self-limiting beliefs around your sense of music, your musicality. And so I don't think, you know, it's one thing to go, we're all musical, but it's another thing to really believe that about ourselves. And singing out loud for the first time can be very, very frightening. And I don't want to minimize that. So when I sang Every Little Cell and people saw this video. You're
going to have to sing it for us, by the way.
Oh, okay. But first, so hundreds of people emailed me to say, I love this song, because there was this thing on Instagram happening where people were going #EveryLittleCell and singing it in heaps of different languages. People were messaging me saying, I love this song, but I could never sing it to my children because A, I don't want them to learn how to sing badly, and B, I would be too scared to, or too embarrassed to. So people are embarrassed to sing in front of their own children and fearful of their children learning to sing out of tune because they believe that they can't sing in tune. So it runs deep. The shame, the social construct of this idea of someone not being musical, which is nothing but a social construct. It's not real. But the shame, and add to that the suppression of our voices, and especially women, and being quietened down and shushed and not allowed to speak, all of these layers that we have of probably trauma connected to our voice makes it very difficult for us to express ourselves musically. So I just want to say that it's not an easy thing for everyone. For some people, singing out loud, even to your own children, can be very, very difficult. But it doesn't mean you can't do it. It doesn't mean you are not musical. That's the world that has told you that. It's not the truth.
And like you said, who decides what's in key and what's not? And I think it's actually more fun sometimes to sing really, really out of tune and make it fun. Just as long as you're having fun with it and, you know, just doing it, I think it's better than nothing.
Absolutely. Yep, I agree.
Last thing I want to ask you is about your Brain Care Cafe. How can people get involved, and can you tell us a little bit more about it?
The Brain Care Cafe is an online membership I have. Each weekend I upload a video that is a brain care strategy. So all of our brain care strategies are music based. So this month we're focusing on vagal tone, or activating the vagus nerve. And so we're doing a lot of things that allow our throat to move. So gargling and toning and singing, accenting words so that our throat moves, so that we are able to experience, so that our body can relax and unwind and untense the muscles, so that we can have some sort of relief from anxiety. Some months we're focusing on slowing down. So we are really focusing on what music we listen to and pulling back. And there's a whole bunch, we've got about 200 music-based brain care strategies in the cafe at the moment, and we just keep adding to it every week. So what we're doing in there is supporting our brain to function at its best by using very, very simple music-based strategies. And that's what the Brain Care Cafe is all about. We have song sharing circles in there as well. Once a month, we come together and do our melodic mantras over Zoom and share our melodic mantras with each other. And that's a really beautiful circle. And it's an online membership. So you can, if you look up the Brain Care Cafe on Facebook, or if you just go to my website, which is allisondavies.com.au, you will find a lot more information about it there. And if it's not taking new members when you go and check it out, you can jump on the wait list and we will email you when we are taking new members. And
Sounds amazing. Check it out. Well, thank you so much, Allison, for being on the show today. The power of sound and voice, it's life-changing. So if we've inspired you, definitely go check out Allison's website, and or just look online. There's so much that you can check out as well, just with amazing sound therapy, free ones, and all sorts of things out there as well. Just read up on it, learn about it, bring more music into your home, hum more, sing more, just make lots of noise, get the pots and pans out,
Yeah, absolutely.
just do anything. But thank you so much for being on the show. Remember, any important links can be found in the show notes, but a big thank you to Allison for being on the show today. But until next time, happy parenting, and don't forget to tell everyone you heard it on PakMag.